You heard me? And if you cross my line, you already know. I ain't even got to tell you. You know what type of I am, man, how I live.
He built an empire on loyalty, image, and power. But behind the chains and champagne was something darker. Silence, lawsuits, and a long list of enemies who finally spoke up. Some were raised under him, others never signed a deal, but every single one of them, from forgotten hot boys to fearless outsiders, walked away with the same story. Birdman wasn't who he claimed to be, and we're about to count all 7 down, starting with a hot boy who once called him family until he came home from prison and realized the love was never real. Number 7, Turk. He was part of the Hot Boys, one of Birdman's original success stories. But when Turk went to prison in 2006, everything changed. According to Turk, they were still in contact while he was locked up. But despite all the promises and conversations, Birdman never showed any real support.
I mean, I had been talking to baby like back and forth since I was in prison, but it wasn't no support.
When Turk got out in 2012, he expected the kind of love people usually get when they come home. Maybe a car, a house, some money, especially from someone who once called him son. But Birdman, he gave him nothing.
They come home and, nigga, you got this, here go your house, here go your car. I thought I was gonna have that.
Then came the real gut punch. In a FaceTime interview, Birdman was asked why he didn't look out for Turk, and his response left fans stunned. He claimed they didn't even have a relationship before prison.
Man, to be honest, that's small talk, right? But to be honest, me and Turk ain't have a relationship before he went to jail. I have a relationship with Turk.
By 2015, Turk had had enough. He filed a $1.3 million lawsuit against Birdman for unpaid royalties, money he says he worked for long before prison. Eventually, the lawsuit was settled, and Turk even signed back to cash money.
Real just signed back with cash money, you know what I'm saying?
But the betrayal had already landed. For Turk, the handshake came too late. The respect he expected never showed up. And for fans watching the story unfold, it proved that in Birdman's world, loyalty doesn't always get returned. Which brings us to number 6, BG. Back in the late 90s, BG wasn't just part of the Hot Boys, he was their rawest voice. With hits like Bling Bling and Cash Money as an Army, BG helped shape the Cash Money brand and gave it that gritty, street-certified credibility Birdman needed to go national. But behind all the hype and record sales was a much messier truth. BG later revealed that even when Cash Money was on top, he never felt fairly compensated.
You know what I'm saying? He was collecting like 165 G's a night cash. You know what I'm saying? And we was selling out everything.
He said the royalty checks didn't add up. The paperwork was confusing, and Birdman, the man who once called him son, turned his back on him when it mattered most.
Yeah, man, you know what I'm saying? I looked up to you. I went against my family for you at times. You know what I'm saying? You turned your back on it.
Then came the crash. In 2012, BG was sentenced to 14 years in federal prison on gun charges and witness tampering. And in his darkest moment, insiders close to him said Birdman was completely silent. No phone calls, no visits, not even a public message of support. But when BG was finally released in 2023, Birdman was front and center, smiling, hugging him like no time had passed. Turns out, BG wasn't buying it. Right after his release, he dropped a scathing diss track, letting it all out.
When you came home, I'm gonna ask you about this, but I'm gonna ask you about this later.
Okay.
You made a diss record towards Cash Money.
He made it clear he could have stayed quiet, but something inside him felt disturbed. He had to speak.
Absolutely,
Okay.
I did, absolutely. I had to get that off my chest.
Because when someone helps build your empire, you don't just show up for the cameras. Loyalty isn't about welcome hugs. It's about who stood with you when the lights went out. Which brings us to number 5, Tyga. Tyga might have stayed quiet during the golden years of Young Money, but when the smoke cleared, he made sure his voice cut through loud and clear. At first, it looked like he was just another artist in the mix, dropping Careless World, Hotel California, and quietly collecting plaques. But behind the scenes, Tyga was fighting for money he says was never paid. In 2018, Tyga claimed he was owed $12 million in royalties by both Birdman and Lil Wayne. Money he says was linked to 2 of his biggest albums.
That Birdman still owes him
at least 15 million they owe me.
And this wasn't just street talk. He took it straight to court and filed a lawsuit, just as his comeback single Taste was climbing the charts. Birdman's team didn't just deny the claim, they went on the offensive. They filed a motion to have the lawsuit thrown out, and even demanded that Tyga pay their legal fees. That's when things flipped. Tyga responded with the diss track Cash Money, where he accused the label of trapping his music, delaying his growth, and leaving him high and dry. I had to buy my way out, ain't no love here. It wasn't just a shot at Birdman. It was a warning to every young artist thinking Cash Money was still a dream factory. Tyga wasn't the loudest, but he made his point felt across the industry. Because at the end of the day, what good is fame if your own label's the one holding the keys to your freedom? In Tyga's case, silence turned into strategy, and strategy became survival. Which takes us to number 4, Juvenile. Juvenile wasn't just a Cash Money artist. He was the spark that lit the fuse. With Ha and the cultural classic Back That Ass Up, he helped carry Southern hip-hop into the mainstream. His 1998 album 400 Degrees didn't just go quadruple platinum. It put Cash Money on the national radar and opened the doors for every artist that followed. But just a few years later, in 2002, Juvenile walked away. He said the money didn't add up. The contracts were hard to understand, and every time he asked for clarity, he felt stonewalled. In one interview, he said plainly, they got too much.
One of them situations where we still feel like they got too much.
For more than a decade, Juvenile kept his distance. No features, no appearances. The silence spoke louder than any diss track. It wasn't until 2014 that he re-signed with Cash Money, and in 2019, he and Birdman dropped a joint project, Just Another Gangsta, a moment that felt like closure. But even Juvenile admitted it took him over 10 years to forgive the betrayal, and while they might have patched things up for the cameras, many fans still haven't forgotten how the label treated its first superstar. Because when your foundation feels shaky, every brick stacked on top starts to look suspicious. Now, at number 3, Pusha T. Pusha T was never on Cash Money. He didn't owe them loyalty, and he didn't hold his tongue. In 2012, he dropped Exodus 23-1, a sharp, unapologetic takedown that pulled back the curtain on what he saw as the shady business behind Cash Money's flashy image. The track didn't name names outright, but the targets were clear: Lil Wayne, Drake, and the man behind it all, Birdman. Then in 2018, he came back harder with Infrared, accusing the label of ghostwriting and calling out the money issues that had plagued its artists for years. But it wasn't just clever bars. Pusha made it clear in interviews. He believed the worst kind of theft wasn't done in the streets, but on paper. To him, doing someone dirty through a contract was the lowest kind of betrayal. And that's exactly what he was calling out.
If you steal something and you stealing it like contractually, like that's like the lowest form of a thief.
Birdman didn't clap back with music, just a few brush-off comments in interviews calling Pusha irrelevant. But he felt that diss. The industry did too, because Pusha wasn't some internet troll. He was a respected lyricist, putting his legacy on the line to expose a system he believed was broken. And while Birdman dismissed the shots publicly, behind the scenes, the tension stuck. Because when truth hits hard enough, you don't always need a reply. The silence says it all. Next up is number 2, Rick Ross. If there was ever a diss track that shook Birdman to his core, it was Rick Ross's Idols Become Rivals. Dropped in 2017, it wasn't just bars, it was a public execution set to music. The beat was haunting, the tone surgical. Ross didn't hold back. He name-dropped Birdman, not in passing, but as the centerpiece of a full-blown takedown. He accused Birdman of robbing his own people, from DJ Khaled to Manny Fresh, BG, and most painfully, Lil Wayne.
You're a year late and 5 years late paying that man his money. Pay that man his money.
Ross called out the fake lifestyle, leased cars, rented jets, overpriced chains. But what really cut deep were the lines that exposed the emotional damage. You would give us self-esteem and motivate our drive, but was in our pockets by the time we count to 5. Later, Ross explained that diss wasn't just about Wayne, it was about the culture. That's not how this is supposed to work, he told Billboard. You don't starve the people who built your house. Wayne felt it. He tweeted, "That message hit me in the heart. Motivation on automatic start." Birdman, though, didn't stay silent forever. In a later interview, he fired back, saying Lil Wayne is his son, and he knows what's best for Lil Wayne.
Lil Wayne, my son, I raised him. He ain't had nothing. I brought him to be something. Ain't got something. Think I ain't gonna make sure he's straight? He
continued warning everyone who has ever gotten into his business with him and Lil Wayne.
Bitch, I'm gonna show all you that ever got in my business. I'm gonna show you, don't play with me.
But by then, the industry had already taken sides, because when one artist finally speaks what others are afraid to say, it forces the whole room to look at the truth and decide who really built the empire and who just cashed the checks. And finally, number 1, Lil Wayne. This one wasn't just personal, it was heartbreaking, because what they had wasn't just a business relationship, it was family. Birdman wasn't just a CEO to Wayne, he was a father figure, a mentor, a man Wayne credited with giving him everything. Their bond started early. Birdman discovered Wayne at just 11 years old and immediately signed him to Cash Money.
How old was Wayne when you found him?
Wayne could have been 10 or 11. A little bit of it with a pick, and I just saw no fear in it.
Over the years, Wayne delivered hit after hit, carried the label through its toughest times, and launched Young Money, bringing Drake and Nicki Minaj to the world. But in 2014, everything cracked. Days before the Carter 5 was supposed to drop, Wayne tweeted that he felt like a prisoner, accused Birdman of stalling his release, and then came the $51 million lawsuit. On tour, he made it clear, he screamed, Cash Money, smashed the mic on the ground, and walked away.
Carter 5 coming soon. Cash Money.
Then came something darker. In 2015, Wayne's tour bus was shot at. Pee Wee Roscoe, linked to Young Thug, was convicted. Prosecutors tied Birdman to the phone calls, but no charges were filed. In 2016, they shared a hug. In 2018, Birdman publicly apologized. I'm sorry, bruh, and fly.
And I wanted to apologize to my worldwide to let them know that.
But after years of pain, lawsuits, and near-death moments, some apologies feel more like closure than repair. Because when your father turns into your opponent, not even hit record can heal that kind of betrayal. Too much damage, too many lies. Birdman lost more than money. He lost trust. So what do we make of all this? Turk, BG, Tyga, Juvenile, Pusha T, Rick Ross, Lil Wayne. Each of them walked away from Birdman's empire with a story, a scar, a lesson. Some forgave, some didn't. But all of them, at one point, believed in Birdman. And when it came down to money, contracts, and loyalty, that belief crumbled. Was Birdman just doing business? Or was he running a machine that chewed up everyone who helped build it? You tell us. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Because if this is what we know now, who knows what's still hiding behind the gold-plated doors of Cash Money Records?